I have the best mom in the world. Hi, Mom. So, back in 2002, my dad was really sick, and I could tell right around Mother's Day that my mom was really starting to struggle. She was having a hard time. And it wasn't just my dad, there were some other issues going on top of that. So, with all that she was dealing with, I could tell she needed some support. At that time, I was going to school down at Catholic University in Washington, D.C. So if I was going to make a surprise visit, I needed some help. Well, my mom was going to my friend Kelly's house for tea. Kelly always, every Mother's Day, invited my mom and her mom, Phyllis, over for tea. So I got in touch with Kelly, told her what I wanted to do, and we both decided the best thing for me to do was to just kind of show up her house. But Kelly obviously then couldn't pick me up at the airport, so I called another friend of mine, Phil, who lived in the same complex that Kelly did, to see if he would pick me up at the airport to drive me, and he was more than happy to do that. So I got a ticket from Baltimore, I flew into Logan, my friend Phil picked me up and drove me to Kelly's. As we were getting close, I let Kelly know that I was there, and so she made sure that my mom was not in her living room, which is, you kind of entered right into her living room from the front door. So my mom went up, she got my mom to go upstairs, and so I came in, and eventually my mom came down the stairs. She immediately saw me, and she kind of started crying, came up to me, and it was really funny. She actually slapped me and then gave me the biggest hug. I don't remember exactly how long it lasted. When we get into those moments of stress, those moments that we're really feeling overwhelmed, we don't always know how we're going to react emotionally. I'll admit I wasn't expecting my mom to slap me, but I also realized it just was a moment of just releasing so much emotion, so much that was just sort of being held within her. That's just simply how she reacted. We all kind of laughed about it. We're in one of those moments where we're really sort of stressed and overwhelmed. And if we're all honest with ourselves, we're not really sure emotionally how we're dealing with everything that's happening. We're not really sure sort of how we're supposed to react. It's kind of like the disciples when they found out that Jesus rose from the dead. I mean, think about it. Thomas just flat out wouldn't believe it until he could stick his hand in his hand and his hand in his side, and just didn't make sense to him. When Mary Magdalene went to tell the disciples, when the other women went to tell the disciples, they couldn't believe it. And even on the road to Emmaus, they were talking about all of this, and they were trying to put together the pieces of what was happening. They just lost the one they thought was going to change everything and save the world. They didn't know how to deal with this news. They didn't know how to deal with the emotion of what was coming. And ultimately, how did they come to terms with it? It's not ignoring their emotions. Rather, it was about recognizing that the promises of God are real. That God's promises will be fulfilled. That God, again, as I've said before, never abandons or forsakes us. And even when His promises seem outrageous, incomprehensible, God will come through. we got a lot of emotion going on right now. We're not sure exactly when the end of this will all be. We're not sure what the end will bring about. Some of us have already lost people we love or know of people who have lost people they love. But what we need to recognize is the truth of the disciples. It's okay to be emotional. And it's okay to, at times in this moment, to act in ways that don't maybe make complete sense. Because I think that's true of the disciples. I mean, Thomas asking to put his finger in the hole doesn't make sense. It's not about making sense right now. It's about simply trusting. Trusting in those promises that our God is with us. Trusting in the promises of the death and resurrection of Christ. That no matter how dark a moment might seem, God's power to transform is greater. No matter how dark a moment might feel, God can change it. That's the promise of his death and resurrection. That's the promise of the Easter season. That is the promise of the hope that Christ gives us. The promise that he is truly risen, realized not just 2,000 years ago, but if we truly open our hearts to Christ, realized today. God bless.